Isla Vista. A name synonymous with UCSB, beach parties, and a carefree spirit. But beneath the veneer of sun-drenched days and keg-fueled nights lurked a different reality. A current of unease ran beneath the surface, whispering of strange occurrences and unsettling encounters. Isla Vista had a way of testing your limits, of blurring the line between harmless fun and genuine terror. I learned this the hard way. It was my sophomore year. I lived in a chaotic, ramshackle house with 5 other girls, a stone's throw from the beach. We embraced the chaos, throwing parties that spilled onto our lawn and into the street. We were invincible, or so we thought. But every so often, a shadow would fall over our revelry, a reminder that not everyone came to Isla Vista with good intentions. It was past 2:30 in the morning, the kind of hour when the world feels eerily silent and still. The remnants of a particularly wild party littered our living room, evidence of a night that had spiraled out of control. Empty beer cans, crumpled chip bags, and forgotten red Solo cups created a minefield on the floor, each step a reminder of the chaos that had unfolded. I stumbled in, exhausted, my body aching for the comfort of my bed, ready to crash and forget the night's events. A figure on the couch startled me, a shadowy presence illuminated by the flickering light of the TV. A man I'd never seen before lay sprawled across it, snoring softly, as if he belonged there. He was dressed in clothes that seemed to belong to another era, a faded band t-shirt and ripped jeans that had seen better days. His hair was long and greasy, his face obscured by a thick, unkempt beard that looked like it hadn't been trimmed in months. He reeked of stale cigarettes and something else, something vaguely metallic that made my stomach churn with unease.
Who was this stranger? What was he doing here? And how did he get into our house? Did someone let him in, or did he find his own way?
I froze, unsure of what to do, my mind racing with possibilities. My mind raced, trying to piece together the events of the night, searching for any clue that could explain his presence. Had we invited him in? Was he a friend of a friend, or just a random stranger who had wandered in? I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, it was 4:30 in the morning. The room was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that makes you feel like something is about to happen. The first rays of dawn were starting to peek through the gaps in our curtains, casting long shadows across the room. And then the scratching started. It was coming from the front door, a slow, deliberate rasping that sent chills down my spine. Each scratch seemed to echo through the house, amplifying the sense of dread. I crept closer, my heart pounding in my chest. Every step felt like an eternity, the sound of my own breathing loud in my ears. The scratching continued, more insistent now, as if whatever was on the other side knew I was approaching. It was like something out of a horror movie, the kind that makes your skin crawl and your heart race. I peered through the peephole, my breath catching in my throat. It was him, the stranger from the couch, the one who had appeared out of nowhere. His eyes were wide and bloodshot, his face contorted in a grimace that spoke of madness. He was still wearing those unsettling clothes, and he was scratching at the door with a ferocity that bordered on manic. It was as if he was trying to claw his way inside.
Terror, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog of sleep, jolting me fully awake. This was not a harmless drunk who'd wandered into the wrong house. This was something far more menacing. This was something else, something far more sinister, a presence that seemed to radiate malevolence.
It hit me then, like a bucket of ice water. This man hadn't been invited. He had slipped in unnoticed during the chaos of the party. He had been watching us, lurking in the shadows. The thought sent a fresh wave of fear coursing through me. I backed away from the door, my mind racing. I had to get help. I had to get my roommates and get out of the house. But the phone line was dead, and our cell phones were scattered throughout the house, lost in the wreckage of the party. I was trapped. Frantically, I shook my roommates awake, their sleep-laden eyes widening with terror as I recounted the events of the night.
We huddled together, whispering in hushed tones as the scratching at the door continued unabated.
Finally, just as we were about to make a run for the back door, the stranger stopped scratching. We held our breath, listening intently. Silence. Then the sound of breaking glass. He was trying to get in.
Adrenaline surged through me. We didn't hesitate. We scrambled out the back door, racing through the early morning darkness until we reached the safety of a neighbor's house.
By the time the police arrived, the stranger was gone, vanished without a trace. The incident with the stranger shook us all. It was a stark reminder that even in the supposed safety of our own home, we were vulnerable. But that incident was just the beginning of my descent into the depths of real-life horror.
This time, the monster wore a familiar face. It started innocently enough. Sarah was a classmate, a quiet girl with a shy smile and a penchant for vintage clothing. She seemed harmless, even endearing in her awkwardness.
We started hanging out, grabbing coffee after class and browsing vintage shops on weekends. She seemed genuinely interested in my life, asking questions about my dreams, my fears, my passions.
Looking back, I realized how easily she had manipulated me, how skillfully she had woven herself into the fabric of my life. But at the time, I was oblivious, blinded by her seemingly genuine interest. But slowly, subtly, things began to change. What started as innocent admiration began to morph into something more intense, more unsettling. Her questions became more personal, her compliments more frequent and effusive. It was as if she was trying to weave herself into every aspect of my life. Her texts became constant, a barrage of messages that followed me throughout the day and into the night. Each ping of my phone brought a new wave of anxiety. She began showing up at my apartment unannounced, bringing me small gifts, baking me cookies. At first, it seemed sweet, but soon it felt invasive. I tried to brush it off, to convince myself that she was just being overly friendly. I told myself that she meant no harm, that she was just lonely. But deep down, a seed of unease had been planted. Her actions were becoming more erratic, more unpredictable. Her constant presence was suffocating, her unwavering attention unnerving. I felt like I was being watched all the time, even in my own home. I started avoiding her calls, making excuses to cancel our plans. I hoped that by distancing myself, she would get the hint and back off. But she wouldn't be deterred. Her behavior escalated. She became more persistent, more determined to be a part of my life. She started following me, showing up at places I frequented, lurking in the background, watching my every move. It felt like I was living in a thriller movie. The shy smile was gone, replaced by a look of desperate longing that sent shivers down my spine. Her eyes seemed to bore into my soul, leaving me feeling exposed and vulnerable. I was trapped in a nightmare, stalked by someone who had once seemed so harmless. The line between admiration and obsession had been crossed, and there was no going back.
One day, a friend sent me a link. It was to a blog. My blood ran cold as I scrolled through the posts. It was Sarah's blog, and it was dedicated to me. The blog was filled with photos of me, candid shots taken without my knowledge or consent. My life, my words, my very essence twisted and distorted into a grotesque parody of affection. She wrote about our deep connection, our destiny to be together. The posts were filled with rambling declarations of love, interspersed with veiled threats directed at anyone who dared to come between us. She had created an entire online world dedicated to her delusional obsession with me. It was a chilling glimpse into the mind of a stalker, a stark reminder that the internet could be a breeding ground for the darkest impulses of the human heart. The terror that had once been confined to the shadows of the night now seeped into my waking hours. I saw her everywhere I went, her eyes following me from across crowded rooms, her whispers echoing in the back of my mind. She started spreading rumors about me, trying to turn my friends against me, to isolate me from the people I loved. She hacked into my social media accounts, posting bizarre messages and photos, trying to sabotage my relationships, my reputation, my life. I went to the police, but they were of little help. Without concrete evidence of a physical threat, they said, there was little they could do. I was trapped in a nightmare, stalked by someone who seemed determined to destroy me. I felt utterly alone, consumed by a fear that was as pervasive as it was invisible. The experience left me deeply scarred, haunted by the realization that the greatest horrors often lurk not in the shadows, but in plain sight. The stranger on the couch was unsettling, yes. But it was Sarah, the quiet girl with the shy smile, who truly terrified me. She was a living, breathing reminder that monsters don't always lurk in the darkness. They walk among us, hiding in plain sight, their true natures concealed behind masks of normalcy. And sometimes the people who seem the most harmless are capable of inflicting the most profound pain. The fear lingers, a dull ache in the back of my mind, a constant reminder that the monsters are real. And sometimes they refuse to let you go.